Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. And today, guys, we're taking a look at a new build for the Deadlands DLC. Something unique, something different, and I hope you all enjoy it. This is the Fire Dancer, a build built on many hours of tribulation over the last 6 years. I've been trying to make this build. But it is a build that I am thoroughly impressed with. I think that it is going to be a fun build. I think it's going to make your gaming experience, if you want to play it, something different and unique. And I hope you guys like it. So let's jump right into it. Here is the Fire Dancer. Now, any race can technically play this build because of gear choices and things like that. So don't think of this as it's set in stone, you have to play it this way. It is just an option. Now, a little background on the build itself. The Fire Dancer is more of a performer, more of like a bard, if you will. Somebody who's trained in performing arts to tell a story. Sometimes they might do this in a tavern or in in a performing type setting, just to kind of get people's attention. But when it comes to playing in the world, they use all of their talents of this performance in the way they fight. So they use kind of like this elegant sword dance with fire and flame as they fight. So, as you can see, we are a high elf dragon knight. We have 24 into magicka, 40 into stamina. This gives us a good, well-rounded pool of 26k magicka, 26k stamina. We do have a 924 mag recovery with an 801 stamina recovery. We do have pretty decent spell and weapon damage and weapon crit and spell crit together, equal. And then we have this equalized penetration, which isn't really this high in value. I don't know why it's doing that. I think it might be a bug. Spell resistance, physical resist, very good, very survivable, and great for the build. So moving on, we are running the Thief Mundus Stone. We do have Major Prophecy and Savagery at the same time, all the time. And then we have the dual stat food, grapes and ash yam falafel. So, speaking of food, there are other food options you can use, like the longfin pasty melon sauce. This is what the grapes and ash yam falafel looks like. It's just magicka stamina, does not give you health, and it works out really well. I would say if you're playing in dungeons, I would use the longfin pasty melon sauce. If you're doing overland stuff, grapes and ash yam falafel is really good. And then potion-wise, tri-stat potions are going to be the better option because you're going to have a buff on yourself that's going to give you weapon spell damage. And this is just going to give you a great way to get resources coming in. And it does help a lot. We also have the options of the power pots, both spell and weapon. Your choice. If you want to use either of those, you can. But it really depends on how aggressive you play with the build. I still say this one is my preferred. Alright. Now, taking a look at gear. Now, I did try 2 monster sets with this, and I found this one to be the better option, even though Grothar's is a really good one to use. But Vulcan Scoria is a great monster set to use. The one piece adds offensive penetration, so that means both spell and physical, and then on top of that, the 2-piece has a chance whenever you deal damage with damage over time effects, which you have a lot. You have an 8% chance to summon a meteorite that deals flame damage to the target, and then area of effect flame damage to enemies within 5 meters, and that can happen every 5 seconds. It does scale off your higher weapon and spell damage. Since you have an equalized weapon and spell damage, it's always going to be the same pretty much. Alright, the next set we're running is the Hunting's Rage set. This is a great set for this. Now, I will say this. If you're playing a Magicka race, use the Hunting's Rage. If you're playing a Magicka race or a Stamina race, use the Magicka version, which for some reason I can't put a finger on it. But it's craftable. Both sets are craftable. One's crafted in several regions, the Hunting's Rage. The other one is only craftable in Orsinium. And it is both options are good, and they both give you pretty much the same, just one gives you stamina, one gives you magicka. The next set is the Way of Fire set. Now, this set in particular is really good for this. Okay, let me go over this one first. So this one, the 2 and 4 piece give you crit chance, 3 piece gives you stamina, and then the 5 piece gives you weapon and spell damage. Really, really good for this build. The next one is the Ring of Fire or Way of Fire set. Now, this gives you 2 piece weapon and spell damage, 3 piece max stamina, 4 piece crit chance, and then the 5 piece you deal additional damage, additional fire damage when you deal damage with your weapon. So as long as you deal damage with your light attacks, heavy attacks, it doesn't matter, or even your weapon abilities, you will deal this fire damage every 2 seconds, which is really good. And of course it scales off your higher weapon and spell damage. Going over traits and enchants, starting with the bigger pieces, the helm, the chest, and legs, we are running tri-stat enchants. This is going to give us a well-rounded amount of max health, stamina, and magicka. But on top of that, we're going 2 invigorating on the helm and legs. This will give us a good amount of extra recovery. And then on top of that, the chest, we're going reinforced because it is a heavy piece. And going heavy, reinforced on heavy really helps you in the long run. This is a 5-piece light armor build, by the way. Moving on now to the smaller pieces, we have the shoulders, the gloves, the belts and boots, all divines, but with split stats between them. So we have 2 magicka enchants, 2 stamina enchants. This is going to give you more of that well-rounded playability to where you can get the more equalized stats. Now, you don't have to have equal stats perfectly, just as long as they're close enough to where you can focus both magicka and stamina. And with the divines, you can increase the effect of your Mundus Stone, which is really nice. So, moving on to jewelry, we are running 2 Trirune rings. These are going to give you, again, that good balance of magicka, stamina, and health. Really allows you to build out the build a little bit more effectively. So, really good for that. It does give you the, with having the well-roundedness, it gives you just that better control over your stats. So, now, looking at the traits on here, we have not the traits, the enchants. We have 1 weapon damage and 1 spell damage. The reason for that is to equalize our weapon and spell damage, keep them the same as much as possible. That way we can deal good damage with both, with spells and with our sets. The necklace, we are using an infused necklace with recovery. This is the prismatic enchant, and it's really good because it gives you a mix of recovery. So it plays into both health, stamina, and magicka, and just allows you to really focus into those recovery rates so you can stay more sustained in combat. Moving on now to the weapons. And the weapons, you can go dual swords or dual daggers, your choice. I prefer a mix of both, so I run a sword and a dagger. 1 infused main hand, 1 Nirnhoned offhand on the main bar. The reason for this is on the main bar you're going to get that extra fire damage on that infused, and then the offhand is going to give you magic damage with a little bit of magic recovery every 5 seconds. This will happen every 3 seconds. It works great in a rotation. And then moving on to the back bar, we also have a sword and dagger combo again. And on the sword, we have a weapon damage enchant. Now, it's not going to give you as much weapon and spell damage as, say, a staff or a bow or a 2-handed weapon. But it still gives you that extra weapon spell damage, and it's up consistently, which is really good. It stays up a lot. Now, because it's infused, it has a 5-second timer. But because it's infused, that 5-second timer gets expanded a little bit, and the effect gets expanded, and then the replacement or reapplication can stay applied more effectively with a skill on your back bar that takes damage off of the dual wield. So we have that, and it works out really well, so we can keep that enchant up all the time. Next up, the dagger on the offhand is infused as well, and as you can see, this one uses a prismatic enchant. So it deals magic damage and it heals you for 284 health. It gives you back magicka and stamina. Not quite as much as the one up here, but enough to get you by when it plays into your recovery rates. So it's a really good addition to this. So that is the gear. Now moving on to skills. Skills with this build are really open-ended. There's a lot of things you can do with it, so I would suggest unlocking every skill you can get with this build, from your class, your weapon, your armor, world skills, guild skills, alliance war, all the active skills you can get. The reason for that, so you have more tools to your arsenal. Now the ones I would primarily use most of the time are the ones I have on the bar, and that is Rending Slashes. Great skill, does a lot of damage up front, does a lot of damage over time, and then it also reduces movement speed, which makes you able to control the movement of enemies a little bit better to some degree, which can help your group in a lot of ways. Next ability we have is Burning Embers. Now this deals damage up front, it deals damage over 14 seconds, it heals you for 76% of the total damage inflicted when the effect ends, and you can end it whenever you reactivate this skill. So you can actually end it in the rotation, and I'll show you the rotation so you can see for yourself when to reactivate it. Next skill we have is Bloodthirsty. Now this is another great ability. It's going to heal you, and it's going to deal damage. So it deals damage, so much damage every hit, and then on the final hit it deals 300% more damage, and then it will heal you for 33% of the total damage caused. Next ability we have is Engulfing Flames, and this is a great ability. It deals flame damage up front, flame damage over 14 seconds, and then on top of that, any enemies hit with flame damage while this is active will deal 10% bonus damage to the enemy. So that's really good. Next ability we have is Flames of Oblivion. Now this is one you want to keep up pretty much all the time. You want to activate it when it's on cooldown and keep it going all the time. So the bonus to this is it does give you the Major Prophecy, Major Savagery at all times for being slotted, but it does deal fire damage with 3 fireballs to 3 enemies every 5 seconds, which is good because that just gives you an additional way of dealing damage, and it kind of plays into that whole Flame Dancer kind of theme. Next up we have Flawless Dawnbreaker. Almost a given for this kind of a build because it deals damage up front, it deals damage over 6 seconds, but after activating it, it gives you an extra 300 weapon spell damage for 20 seconds. Moving on to the back bar, our first ability is Eruption. It is a Earthen Heart ability, so whenever you activate this, you will get extra ultimate back, which is really nice. It's going to help you keep your ultimate coming in more effectively, and it's going to allow you to get resources as well because of one of the passives, Battle Roar. Not Battle Roar, Flawless Blessing. When you cast an Earth Heart ability, your group gains Minor Brutality, but on top of that, if you're in combat, you generate 3 ultimate, and this effect can occur every 6 seconds. You won't be recasting this, but every 18 seconds, so it's a really long lasting spell. And it costs you very little to keep it active. It's 340 magicka a second, and your recovery is 900 and something every 2 seconds. So you're really not going to see much expenditure from this. Next up, we have Scalding Ruin. This is a great Mage Guild ability. It's like a trap. You set it down, and any enemy left standing in the area after 18 seconds will take flame damage and flame damage over 14 seconds. It's a great damage over time skill, and it's not used enough in the game, and I think it works really good with this build. Next ability we have is Quick Cloak. This is a really great ability. This allows you to be really mobile when you activate it because you get 14 seconds of major evasion, which allows you to, major evasion, reducing your damage, but it also gives you major expedition for 4, allowing you that quick burst of speed to move around in a fight really well. On top of that, every 2 seconds, the shrapnel will pulse, dealing physical damage to enemies within 5 meters, and that's where you keep those enchants on the back bar reapplied. It applies it'll do both the weapon damage enchant, and it will do the damage and recovery enchant. So it gives you both of those as it's proccing. Next up is a buff, and it's a great buff for this build. It is called Molten Armaments. Now this one, while you have it active, you gain major brutality and major sorcery, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 20% for 36 seconds. And then on top of that, your heavy attacks are increased by 50% while it's active. It's a good way to get resources back and stamina, but it's also a great way to deal extra damage. Next up, we have Flames of Oblivion again, and that's just here because we want that major sorcery prophecy, but you will activate Flames of Oblivion primarily from the back bar, and you'll keep it up on the back bar. So, and then last but not least, one of the best abilities for this build, and that is Standard of Might. This is the primary ultimate you will use 90% of the time in dungeons and trials. And there's a reason why. One, it does flame damage every second for 20 seconds. It applies Major Defile to the enemy, reducing their health recovery and health received. And then standing in the area increases your damage done by 15% and reduces the incoming damage you take by 15%. So this is a great, like, defensive kind of skill to use in combat, especially at the fact that you're in a dungeon, you're wearing light armor, you're going to take a lot of damage. But this is a way to mitigate some of that incoming damage without having to have a resistance buff or something like that on you. The other nice thing is any ally can activate it and shackle synergy, dealing flame damage to nearby enemies and immobilizing them for 5 seconds. It's a great synergy, it's a great skill, and overall just a great thing to have in group play. Alright, so that's it for the skills. Now, skills I would suggest that you can use also with this build, which are kind of handy when you're playing solo. For example, Hardened Armor is a great skill. Green Dragon Blood can be a great skill to have. When you're in really challenging group content that your group might be struggling with, or you're having some difficulties with survivability, Dragonfire Scale is a great skill, and so is Draw Essence. I wouldn't say there's too much over here in the Ardent Flame besides Unrelenting Grip, which would be great for pulling enemies. Another great skill for damage over time is Burning Talons. You can swap it out on the back bar with the Scalding Ruin, and it's another great damage over time ability. When it comes to world skills and the soul magic, Soul Shatter is a really good skill for direct damage, like direct target damage, and then damage area of effect, which is really great. And you also gain immunity to all disabling effects while you're channeling it, which is good. And then enemies affected by this ability are revealed for 3 seconds. Good for PvP, but also can be used in PvE in certain areas where there's a lot of stealthy enemies, especially vampires, if you guys know what I mean. Consuming Traps, another good ability you can use for damage over upfront and damage over time. I would primarily suggest if you're going to use this, use it front bar, not back bar. And then guild skills. Fighter's Guild has a lot of good skills that you can use. Silver Shards is a great AoE skill for damage over time. Ring of Preservation is a great support skill you can use to put down minor protection, minor endurance for your allies. And then also the heal that it does is really good. Camouflage Hunter is really good if you want to swap out for more stamina type DPS and you don't want to focus so much in a Magicka because of what it can do for you in both PvE or PvP. And then the same thing with Bard Trapped. It's a really good skill to get minor force, even though you can get it from another area a little bit better. Shooting Stars, another great skill. It does flame damage. Inner Light's a great skill to use if you're playing primarily Magicka more than stamina. Structured Entropy is a great damage over time with a good heal. And then, of course, Scalding Ruin. And then Balance is a great skill if you're going to tank. Like, if you want to tank with the build, you can. It can work. But it's a good skill for that. And then, of course, Psijic Order skills. Pretty much any of them are really good. Elemental Weapon, definitely, hands down, one of the better options here. If you're playing a healer, Symbiosis is a really good skill for healing you and your allies. Deep Thoughts is a great resource skill. And then the passives down here, the Concentrated Barrier, Spell Orb, and Deliberation all play into any of these skills, which can be really good in group play. Undaunted wise, any of the Undaunted skills, how you want to morph them can be to your advantage, like Inner Beast for tanking, Tangled Webs for, area of effect, control, DPS a little bit, that kind of thing. Sanguine Altar can be great for group play. Bone Shield or Spike Bone Shield can be great for tanking instead of using your own class one. This could be a really good one for tanking because it works very similar, but at the same time, it has a really good, direct damage absorb and then return of damage, which is kind of nice. And then on top of that, it's a synergy. All these are synergies, so any one can be good in any of those situations. When it comes to the assault or the alliance war or PvP skills is what people call them, the assault line, aggressive horn, great group support, echoing vigor, great group heal, and then razor caltrops. And then on top of that, the support side, reviving barrier is a great support skill, along with efficient purge and mystic guard can all play really well into you playing more support than say damage. Racials. High elves get some really good racials for this, so they get whenever you activate an ability, you restore so much magic or stamina, whichever is lowest, and this can occur once every 6 seconds, so it plays into that hybrid play really well. And then when using an ability with a channel or cast time, you take 5% less damage. So pretty much anytime you cast any of your abilities or you're channeling this, you're going to take less damage. Searbane's Boon is a really good one because you get that 2,000 extra magicka, which allows you to hybrid a lot better because you have more magic out the door, so you can take sets that give you more stamina. Elemental talents, what is there to say? I mean, it gives you both weapon and spell damage. And then crafting wise, alchemy, medicinal use, great like passive skill buff thing for your potions. And same thing with Gourmand and Connoisseur. Both great things you can use. Alright, so now that I've shown you the skills, I am going to go over the champion points really quick. Just the ones I would suggest keeping slotted for when you're just playing like content. You're not doing like specific content like Thieves Guild, Dark Brotherhood, that kind of thing. So, professional upkeep is really good because it reduces the repairing cost of your stuff. So if you die, the repair costs are higher. So if you die, you're not paying out as much to repair your gear. Steed's Blessing, another one, increases the amount of, or the out of combat movement speed per stage. So 20% increased movement speed while sprinting or even riding a horse. And then of course liquid efficiency, whenever you use a potion, you have a 10% chance not to consume it. So that saves you some resources there on the potion side. And then Rationer adds actually a total of 30 minutes duration to your food and drinks time, and it just makes it last a lot longer, especially the Ashiams and Falafel. It lasts an hour with this, and the Connoisseur stuff, you get actually like almost 2 hours of use. On the blue side, or the warfare side, we have Backstabber. This one increases your critical damage done by 3% when you're attacking from flanking. This is really good with this build because you want to attack from flank most of the time anyways to increase your damage, especially that 15% critical damage. Next up we have Deadly Aim. This one increases your damage done with single target by 10%. Then we have Thaumaturge, which increases your damage done with damage over time by 10%. And then we have your area of effect damage increased by 10% with Biting Aura. Moving on to the red tree, we have Bloody Renewal. Now this is really good. This one restores stamina per stage whenever you kill an enemy. Now depending on how you're playing the build, you can go with the Magicka one as well, but this one gives you 1500 stamina back whenever you kill an enemy, which you're going to be using a lot more stamina with than Magicka, and I'll show you that in the rotation in a second. Next up we have Rejuvenation. This one grants 1.8 health, magic, and stamina recovery per stage, so we get 90 extra health, magic, and stamina recovery. That with all the other magic stamina recovery we have actually adds up more, so it actually gives us a lot more benefits to our character. We have Survival Instincts. This one, whenever you're under the effect of a status effect, your core combat skills cost 5% less per stage. You're going to be under a lot of negative effects most of the time in the game, so this just helps out a lot. And then last but not least, rousing speed, reducing the cost of sprint by 50 stamina per stage while under the effects of crowd control immunity. So after you break free from something, this is going to give you that extra burst of sprint cost or sprinting capability, but it's going to reduce the cost by a lot more. There's a lot of choices that you can go with otherwise, but this is what I like to play with primarily because it gives me the best overall kind of experience. All right. So now, I'm going to show you the quick rotation on this. You always want to start with Flames of Oblivion, get that going, and then you will approach your target, drop Eruption, do the Ruin, do the Quick Cloak, and then buff. And you can have the buff going first, but pretty much you're going to want to do like a setup of your own. The way I find it is start with the buff, do the Flames of Oblivion, do Quick Cloak, and then start with your Eruption, Ruin, switch bars, then do Twin Strikes, Light Attack, and do Light Attacks in between everything. This will help you a lot. Then go into Burning Embers, Light Attack, Rapid Strikes, Light Attack, Engulfing Flames, Light Attack, and then swap back to Rapid Strikes, Light Attack, Rapid Strikes, Light Attack, Burning Embers, swap back, and then do the whole thing over. So the rotation again is buff, Flames of Oblivion, Cloak, Eruption, this, swap bars, Rapid Strikes, and remember, Light Attack in between each one. This is going to help you a lot. Get 2 Rapid Strikes, go back in and do an Embers, swap bars. The reason for the Embers is the heal. And remember, always keep up that Flames of Oblivion. It's really important. I haven't been doing my potions, but you can see right now, like, my recovery isn't so bad. Like, my stuff's staying up pretty well. But with the yams and falafel, you also get a lot more magicka stamina, which also helps you sustain a little bit better. So you can actually just kind of unleash, is what I like to say. And if you have the Dawnbreaker is going to give you a massive amounts of resources, especially in small groups when you're not fighting like a boss or something. It works out really well, and you can keep that rotation up pretty much indefinitely with even the stats that you have. Now, the other thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you what it would look like if you're playing in a group scenario, like a trial, and you have a lot of people giving you buffs. This is what your build will look like in that situation. Now, this isn't an exact, because this actually gives you more buffs than what you can actually get in the game for most parts, but you will end up with a 28k max stamina, 29k max magicka, 22k health, 1098 recovery with a 952 stam recovery, 4750 weapon and spell damage, and a 55% crit with about a 6k penetration. And your resistances, as you know, don't change. But if you have a potion going, your recoveries actually go up higher. If you have your weapon buff going, your weapon and spell damage go up to about 5,500. And that's not even in a full group organized play. You're actually getting up closer to 6,000 weapon and spell damage. And you can't actually break that. You can actually go above 6k. But as you can see, really good recovery rates, really good stats, really good weapon and spell damage, and really good critical. This build is really good overall. Parsed on this dummy, full rotation, full everything, cleared it, and still pulled 65k DPS. Which isn't bad. But I'm not going to run it in this video because it takes too long, and I don't have the software to edit out stuff yet. I'm still looking at editing software, so you guys just have to take my word for that 65k. A lot of people can pull different variables of numbers. Some people could do this rotation and be like, oh, I'm only getting 45. I can do it and get 65. Somebody else might do it and get 98. It just depends. And it really also depends on skill use as well. So for what it does right now, it works really good. It's a very powerful, fun build to play, and it works in all settings. It works in PvE, PvP, dungeons, trials, overland, and it's just, like I said, it's an overall fun build to play. But that's it for the build. I hope you guys liked it. And if you did, you guys know what's coming next. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. If you do subscribe, I do suggest you click that notification bell to be notified when I post new videos. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.